Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Invisible Condition. It's not all in your head. I'm your host, Jeff Pearson, and we want everybody with an invisible condition, no matter what that condition is, to know beyond the shadow of a doubt that you do have a voice, you do have a community, and you are never alone. And to that end, I have an amazing guest today that I cannot wait to introduce you to. Uh, Early in his career, Dr. David Rosensweet trained the first nurse practitioners in the United States and was in charge of health promotion to the state of New Mexico. Or health, yeah. Dr. Rosensweet has now over 30 years of experience specializing in andropause and menopause treatment. We're going to get into that because I'm not really sure what andropause is, but we're going to talk about that. He's the founder of the Institute of BioIdentical Medicine and the Menopause Method, which we are definitely going to dive into, as well as the author of 3 books on the subject, including his latest, Happy, Healthy Hormones. So everybody knows somebody that's either in menopause, has been in menopause, or is coming, right? Everybody raise your hand. Everybody knows somebody. So this is a valuable show for absolutely everybody. So his protocol has been used to treat more than 12,000 women. And so it is a big deal. He is a big deal. And I am very excited for you to meet him. So let's bring him on right now. Dr. Rosensweet, thank you so much for being here. This is an honor. I'm so glad you're here.
My honor too, Jeff.
Thank you so much. Man, I tell you what, a lot of guests on our show have dealt with probably 90% of the guests on our show have dealt with some sort of invisible condition. Menopause, menopause is probably one of them for any woman that's been on the show, obviously, but we don't really have to worry about that, you and I. But but please share with us what led you to be so passionate about helping people in this space.
Well, big story. I'll make it a short one.
Bring it on.
I knew from a very young age that I wanted to be a doctor.
Nice.
And when I entered high school, when I was a freshman in high school, they asked us to write a paper about what you wanted to be, and I knew it already. I wanted to be a surgeon. Ooh. And my uncles were doctors, and I was born to do this. It's in my bones, as it is for so many healthcare providers at every level, from janitors who are in hospitals to neurosurgeons and everyone in between, the nurses. There's a lot of people that this is deeper into our bones and soul than any of us ever imagined. And when you run into such a person, it's a beautiful thing. It's beautiful.
It's awesome.
And then I went to medical school. I thought it was like a church or a synagogue for me. It felt so sacred to me.
Wow.
And gosh, I got to wear a white coat 3 years into it and see patients. Oh my man, that was the thrill of my young lifetime. And then when I graduated from medical school, I wanted to learn more. I wanted to learn the tricks of the old timer practitioners. I knew that they had tricks up their sleeves. And I started mentoring with them and learning about nutrition, about vitamins, about minerals. My tool bag was expanding rapidly, and we called them pearls in medicine. Someone's figured out that something helps a human being. These are the things you want to gather and be able to. And then I had a functional medicine practice as early as 1970. Wasn't called that back then. But it was certainly a holistic practice, and I was living like that. And then fast forward 30 years ago, Deborah, one of my patients, walks into my office in Santa Fe, and she comes in early, before office hours, no appointment, busts open my consultation room door where I'm doing some paperwork, walks up to my desk and pounds her fists on it. And she said, "Look, don't think you know me. I'm going crazy. And don't pretend that I'm not, and I need help." And this was a surprise to me because this woman was brilliant. She had retired in her mid-40s. Think about that.
Wow.
And yet she was off the rails upset. And because of the sacred way I think our lives really unfold, 3 weeks earlier, I had spoken to a world expert on progesterone, a medical doctor, John Lee. And he was so generous with his time and his knowledge. And I gave her some progesterone.
Mhm.
And 3 weeks later, I get a letter from her saying, I can't believe this stuff. I'm totally myself again.
Wow.
Yeah, this
That's
stuff is so
amazing.
powerful. And it's pretty unusual situation in medicine. By the time patients are making appointments, they're not doing well. And it's often a slow moving train, most often, to really be able to help them get what they want, which is to feel better and to heal. And here, this had happened, which would seem to me metaphorically overnight, but I never have been in control of my practice. She referred to several of her friends, and before I knew it, I was seeing primarily women in menopause. Suited me well. I love biochemistry. I love the effect of these most powerful biochemicals in our body of replenishing them. That's the long version of it.
No, it's great. I love that about the woman banging her fist on the I mean, when you're passionate about something, it's not surprising that happens. But um, one thing that stood out to me that you said is it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, with a lot of alternative practitioners or anybody that's outside the traditional medical realm, um, people people don't usually seek their help until they've tried everything and everything else that society tells them to, which is usually traditional medical, and then they come to the alternative space for last resort. Is that am I about right there?
I think in general, you've named it. And yet there are pockets where that's not been true. Um, I was a certain type of person in 1970, and it was Santa Fe, New Mexico, and there was a community of people who really were looking for how can we live better?
Yeah.
Can we get these relationships to work? Can we be healthy? Can we lead a healthy lifestyle? And in many ways, a lot of my patients were leading me into the world of nutrition, detoxification, homeopathy, herbs, natural childbirth.
It's
And so I agree with you, though. For most people, it's a court of last resort.
yeah.
But for many, it's a natural way of living, and that's who they want. That's who they're seeking out. Really, what they want is they want the best.
Yeah.
They want to get better. They want to do the research. They want to find out who's got the tools, and they may stumble and fall and go shopping and make many errors along the way. But you know this yourself, I believe, that you stick with it. Sooner or later, you can heal. Healing is possible.
100%. And kudos to you. I mean, well done on your part by listening. I mean, people are coming to you asking for the and saying, this is what I'm seeking. And so you're listening, you're adopting some of these methodologies. I mean, you're absolutely right. I wouldn't be here. I mean, I wouldn't be here first and foremost without really good neurosurgeons. But I also would not be sitting before you without a lot of help from the naturopathic world. I mean, traditional medicine, saved my life, but alternative medicine gave me my life back. Like gave me my actual.
Yeah.
So it can work together. Is the point, I think.
And it's an unusual division. I always like to think of it as what's good medicine, and what do you need at the time, and who do you need, and we need an army of support. It's a real team sport to
Yeah.
to get better and more conscious and heal in this lifetime. And so a lot of input from a lot of good folks.
Yes. 100%. Now I know that everybody watching, unless they've been living in a cave for the last 100 years, knows what the word menopause means, right? Everybody knows what menopause is, or most people do. What is andropause?
Well, they're very similar uh, in certain ways, almost identical. We have all kinds of biochemicals in our body, and
Mhm.
the most potent biochemicals are hormones: thyroid, testicular, ovarian, adrenal. These are the most powerful biochemicals. In fact, for example, some of those hormones are capable of mounting enough fight or flight that we can flee from a saber-toothed tiger. And,
Yep.
women have been known to lift cars off entrapped children.
Yeah.
Where'd they get all that biological oomph? They got it from the
Right.
hormones, with the vanguard of that ability. And every one of us, men and women, we start at about the age of 20 putting out our peak output, let's say from our gonads, and then
Okay.
all of us decline.
Right.
All of us decline, and some men do it sooner, some men do it later, but everyone declines. And what happens for women is their levels drop low enough at a certain point that they no longer have periods, and they're no
Mm.
longer fertile. They keep on declining from that point on. And since they are the most powerful biochemicals in the body, amongst them, when you lose them, 80% of women on this planet develop life-stopping symptoms.
Oof.
And it's really disruptive.
Yeah.
And we didn't know this about men. We didn't know andropause. Your question is well well put. Until this revolution took place when the pharmaceutical industry, seeking out the medication to improve arterial circulation to the heart, came out with this magic pill called Viagra as a heart medicine. And in their clinical trials, so many of the men were reporting that they were getting return of their erection
But they were taking it for their heart.
in the clinical trials. And the
Okay.
and it's really a blood flow. It really increases blood flow. How great is that? I mean,
I
increasing
mean,
blood flow to the heart, increasing blood flow to the brain, increasing blood flow to the genitals.
everywhere.
Yeah. Well, what we didn't know was that when this medicine became publicly available through prescription, of course, there was an explosion. Became one of the most popular drugs and most profitable around. And what we learned is, although we were all familiar with menopause, women were, there was this thing called andropause, and it was a humongous market. And where does it show up for most men? There comes a point where they can tell their sexuality is not as vigorous as it once was. And there's a staircase of symptoms that develop. And the defining one for so many men, which really gets them interested in andropause, they don't know the name, but they know they know the loss of erection. They know the challenges around maintaining an erection during intercourse, and then the inability to have an erection. It's that so to so many men, they do know what that. They may not know the word, but they know the phenomena.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah.
Mm. Well, there you go. Okay. Okay, everybody. We all learned something new today, right? I didn't know I have heard, people have talked about those symptoms and everybody's seen at least 1,000 Viagra commercials, but I don't think I've ever known that that's what it's called. So now to the audience, I just want to throw this out there. Everybody watching, anybody watching, because men, women, everybody will benefit from this. Okay. So keep an eye out, keep watching the episode here because we've got the expert right here. We got another 30 minutes, 40 minutes that we're going to be talking about this. So stick around, don't go anywhere. And if you have questions about menopause, andropause, anything related to any of that, put it, don't be, you don't have to be specific or anything, but oh, you know what? Here, I'm going to do this. There's a QR code right there. You can reach out there. That'll go to a website that will have some more information and get some ways to be able to get a hold of Dr. Rosensweet. And And if you want to comment or send a message to me or to, you know, however you got to do it. If you have questions, reach out is what I'm saying. And you're going to learn a lot more here in the next half hour, 40 minutes or so, but we're not done yet. So just wanted to throw that out there. Um, what is, what are some of the misconceptions? I mean, there's a lot of misconceptions out there about menopause, certainly andropause. I'm sure that's even a thing, that, I mean, you just put a word to something that a lot of men are feeling. What are some of the misconceptions you've run into?
That is a tremendous question because there wasn't a lot of misconceptions. It turns out that there's been treatments for these massive hormone declines for 1,000 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then for women in 2002, this large medical study was falsely reported. And it suggested that there was an increased risk for breast cancer, heart attack, and stroke if women were being treated
Oh
with
my goodness.
hormones. And 40% of American women, that's 18 million women at that time, were being treated with hormones. So it put the fear on this planet
Right.
that it spread all around the world, and that in America, the 18 million women reduced to less than 2 million with tremendous consequences. So that's a misconception. So what I'd like to do for your audience is clarify what the subject of risk really is scientifically. Never mind
Yes,
what they
please.
heard. They heard false stuff. It was later recanted. That study was retracted by the original study committee in 2017. They published it in the same journal. They said after 18 years of follow-up, there is no increased risk for breast cancer, heart attack, and stroke. The very
Wow.
thing they had scared the planet with. And one of the misconceptions is that hardly anyone's heard the retraction. Even healthcare providers. It's leaking out there. It's getting out there. But now,
Yeah.
do the math. 7 years after they retracted the study, there's very few people, including healthcare providers, have heard about that. So that's one of the misconceptions. And here's what the science is, if I can go ahead and tell it.
Please do.
That we're all at risk for thousands of diagnoses, and a lot of them are not okay.
Right.
And we're all at risk for hundreds of cancers amongst those diagnoses that are possible.
Mhm.
As a male, I turn out to have an increased relative risk for prostate cancer. There's reasons for that. Women happen to have an increased relative risk for breast cancer. There's reasons for that. Given we're all at risk, here's the science. Women who are treated with hormones are at less risk for breast cancer, heart attack, and stroke than women who do not receive hormonal treatment.
Hmm.
It even goes so far as women who have had breast cancer and have had that breast cancer properly treated, they happen to be at increased risk for recurrence as opposed to a woman who's never had breast cancer, that rate.
Mhm.
But women who have had breast cancer and breast cancer properly treated are at less risk for recurrence if they're treated with hormones than if they're not.
Hmm.
And I'd like to just go on to say that the world of urology got poisoned as well.
Hmm.
It's not as well or more as universally known, but urologists were taught, now this is more historical,
Okay.
that giving a man testosterone who had prostate cancer was like putting gasoline on a fire.
Oh.
That happened to be based on 2 cases published in the medical literature in the late 40s, and urologic training was universal that there was increased risk. Where the science is, men with low testosterone levels are at greater risk for prostate cancer than men who have adequate testosterone. Men who have prostate cancer are at greater risk for having a vicious prostate cancer if they have low testosterone levels. So the myths that you ask about it are by definition are the opposite of the truth. Men and
Right.
women who are treated with hormones do much better. Not to mention the benefits.
Yeah.
Because we're all very familiar with the symptoms. Men are very familiar, once it's happened to them, of declining and then loss of erectile function. And women are very familiar with hot flashes, night sweats, not being able to sleep, mood disturbances like Deborah had back then. I'm just mentioning her first name.
Yeah.
Um, they're powerful because the hormones are so powerful that when you don't have them, you really. But what people are not familiar with, and I think this is why I wanted to bring this up, Jeff, because the question around myth is it's the deeper stuff that ultimately really matters.
Yeah.
So, for example, I'm a medical doctor. I've been treating people from in the womb to in their 80s and 90s and the 100s. And I know what happens to people as they grow older. I was taught it in medical school. A gerontologist, a specialist in aging, said, you medical students, you know thousands of diagnoses. Let me tell you what's really happening to older people. They're losing their muscles and they can't walk and stand with stability. They fall on their osteoporotic hips or they have cognitive decline. They wind up in nursing homes. And you want to help the older people, help them with their muscles, their mind, and their bones.
Yep.
And 80% of all women who are in nursing homes or assisted living facilities are there because of low hormones.
Wow.
So people are a lot of women are pretty savvy about the common symptoms of menopause. What they're not aware of is the long-term stuff. And having dealt with my mother, my mother-in-law, and elder folks wind up in their 80s and 90s and are making the transition out of their home into an assisted living facility, they're strong and they're able to do it, but it's a tragic moment for a lot of them. They do not want to go home. They do not want to leave their lives. They don't want to go into the old folks' home. Bless their hearts. I mean, I have a lot of respect for the army of workers that take care of the elderly in nursing homes and assisted living facility, and I've been up close and personal to them. But at the same time, the men and women don't want to do it. They'd rather not, but they don't know of an option. Here's the option for 80%. Pick up on when these hormones are declining and whenever you can think of it. In your 40s, your 30s, your 50s, your 60s, your 70s, your 80s, whenever you can think of it, find an expert in replenishing hormones and go do it.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and I think we have one here today. We can reach out. That's what the QR code is for. So I can't wait to dive into more of this. And we're going to go, this is a perfect spot to take a short break real quick. And we're going to go to a commercial, and anyone interested in exactly what you were just saying, that's a perfect segue. Anybody interested in what, balancing those hormones and being more healthy in that area, this is the spot to be right here. And you are the person to reach out to. So we're gonna go to a short commercial break, and then we will talk more about bioidentical medicine and how it helps to balance hormones and all the different things that you're doing that people are going to want to they don't even know it yet, but they're excited to hear about it. So stick around, everybody. Do not go anywhere, and we will see you in just a couple of minutes.
The Club Fit Home Portable Gym System is a groundbreaking new system that can help everyone at any fitness level. You can be the happy, fit person you always wanted to be, and Club eFit can make that happen by helping you get the body you deserve in the time you can spare. With workouts ranging from cardio, core, to total body toning, it's easy to get started. Start taking care of you today. To make the change, go to clubefit.com now.
Does your to-do list have you feeling stressed? Does your list include tasks like responding to email and phone calls, collecting forms and paperwork, and sending quotes and invoices? Have you been neglecting posting updates to your social media accounts, email newsletters, or content on your website? Maybe you need help to get digitally organized. I'm Selena, one of the owners at Office Mercenary, and we're a US-based virtual assistant agency. We can take care of all of these tasks and more so you can get back to focusing on the things you love about your business. Our team is happy to work with you and your individual needs. So schedule a call with us, bring your to-do list, and stop doing the tedious tasks.
Hey, how you doing? My name is Greg Russell. I'm the host of TechnologyTuesday.com. You can find us on the Conscious Business TV network every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the latest resources to help you make more money in your business. Join us on E360 TV. Come on.
All right, here we are. We are back. Thank you again for being here, Dr. Rosensweet. This has been great. This is awesome. So excited to get this out to our audience. And wanted to, before we went to the break, we were talking about some myths and some different stuff that that people go through that they sometimes can't even put a name to, and that's a big deal because once you can put a name to it, sometimes that's the first step to help, And so we were going to talk about some of the things you're doing, which includes something called bioidentical medicine. And you've got the Institute for Bioidentical Medicine. What the heck is bioidentical medicine?
Well, hormones that are in our body, they have a certain biochemical configuration.
Okay.
And there's a lot of different ways that the human physical body can be affected. And what real medicines are is they're molecules that are different than what's in the body.
Mm.
And so almost any medicine that you can name is a medicine by definition. It's a different molecule that's in the human body. And those molecules, the human body reacts to those molecules.
Sure.
So, for example, someone with high blood pressure on a high blood pressure medicine, that medicine sets off a cascade of biological events, and the body's reacting to that medicine, and the blood pressure reduces. There's other things that are different than medicines. Food, for example, is different than medicine.
Mm-hmm.
Most foods that people used to eat, and I can't say nowadays, but natural foods coming out of your garden or out of your pasture, they're the same molecules that are in your body. So they're not received as medicines. They don't cause your body to react. They nurture your body.
Yeah.
In fact, your body takes in that food and oxygen and water, and it does some absolutely miraculous transformations. If you don't believe in the divine, just study the human body. It'll wake you up, I'll tell you.
100%. Yeah.
And it changes the food into all these thousands and thousands of different types of molecules that the cells need, the organs need, the tissues need. It's a miracle. Well, these biochemicals in our body, they all have different functions. And there's this whole class of biochemicals in the body called hormones. and they're produced by glands, and they're some of the strongest biochemicals that our bodies deal with.
Mhm.
Thyroid gland, the adrenal glands on top of the kidney, the ovaries, the testicles. There's other
Mhm.
glands. They're putting out these powerful biochemicals that are doing amazing things. They're really there for life. Every hormone that is produced out of every gland is there for health and life and does a myriad of functions. And yet have a second capability. And that second capability is they can be mobilized if there's danger.
Mm.
So if we're attacked by a saber-toothed tiger, these glands just turn it on, send these juices into the bloodstream, and we can stand and fight a dinosaur. I
Yeah.
don't know how good we would do with that. I think running would be a better choice.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And
For
this is called the fight or flight, or the biology of the stress response.
Mhm.
And hormones, they all play a natural function. Like you can imagine what testosterone is for a man. It's most known for its playing a humongous role in male sexual function and in male sexual interest. Well, it also has many other functions because it's so powerful. It supports the mood. It supports the drive. It supports the passion, and on and on and on. And just
Yeah.
like in women, it supports the muscles. You don't have testosterone, you lose your muscles. As many elderly men, if you look at their lower extremities, you're going to see a thinness there. It looks a little bit frightening, and it should be frightening.
Yeah.
And in women, these have a natural sexual function: periods, fertility, reproduction. The human life goes on and on. That's part of what the ovaries do. But these ovarian hormones, it has receptor sites in almost every cell of a woman's body. They're extremely prevalent in the brain, in the bones, in the muscles. Everywhere that you think is important, there's receptor sites that interact with the hormones. So when women lose these hormones, they lose major obvious functions. They lose the ability to think clearly, so many of them.
Mhm.
Oh, that for a midlife woman who's at the peak of her experience and her education and her functionality and her expertise, many of them fall off of a cliff. And they're not thinking clearly, they're not remembering. I have stories from individual women that really underscore this,
Yeah.
including Deborah.
I bet.
But because they're so universal, women who lose their hormones, they lose their bones.
Mm.
They lose their muscles. They can't stand and walk with stability. They fall on their osteoporotic hips. In the old days, they used to die. Now they get an extra year. They move from canes, walkers, then to wheelchairs. They lose bladder control for ovarian hormone losses. They wind up in adult diapers. They become unmanageable at home.
Yeah.
So these are the most powerful biochemicals. And what do
Mm.
you want to replenish them with? Because the Chinese figured out how to replenish them,
Yep.
and they really figured out how to use bioidentical hormones to do it. So when these
Nice.
ovaries or the testicles are putting out the various hormones that they do, a certain percentage of those hormones wind up in the urine.
Mm.
So the Chinese figured out this. The aristocrats did this. They set up these outhouses, one for males, one for young females, young healthy males, another for young healthy females. They collected the urine of each. They developed two different types of hormones. They dried out the female urine, and it turns to a powder, and the aristocracy got to have that.
Oh no.
And they dried out the young male urine, and they fed that to the male aristocrats, and they got to have that. And what were they feeding them? Bioidentical hormones, the
Wow.
same molecule that their ovaries or testicles put out.
Hmm.
And this went on for a long time. And where it really exploded into popularity was in the 1940s. The pharmaceutical industry knew that menopause was a deal,
Sure.
and they wanted to find a way to replenish these hormones in women. And what they did was they started out with pregnant women, and they started to collect their urine, the same as the Chinese had done. But it was too cumbersome. It was too challenging. And they couldn't get the quantity. So they abandoned that, and they started collecting urine from a horse, a pregnant horse, a pregnant mare. Because the hormone output of the ovaries of a pregnant horse is ginormous.
Sure.
Collected the urine of these pregnant mares, dried it out, put it into pills, and the Premarin, pregnant mare urine, Premarin, it became the most popular and profitable drug of all time by 2002.
Wow.
Because so many women were getting just the wonderful advantages of replenishing at least the estrogen.
Sure.
And then they added this artificial progestin to it. Well, the horse urine, 50% of what was in the horse's urine was bioidentical, like the estrogens that were in a woman, but 50% were unique to horses. But it worked. And the women who were on Premarin, I've had patients who were on Premarin, they looked better, felt better, and did better than women who were not being treated with Premarin. Well, like anything else that's good, there's a lot of people pay attention to it, and they keep on trying to make it better. So in the 1980s, a medical doctor, a beloved father of so much in holistic medicine, Jonathan Wright, bless his heart for his contributions.
Yeah.
He thought, wow, why are we giving women Premarin when I think there's pure same molecule hormones out there? And he was right, because in the development of the birth control pill, they had learned how to isolate one of the most potent of the female hormones, estradiol, to put it in the birth control pills. And he asked one of his pharmacist friends, could they reach out there and see if there were the various hormones? There's at least 5 of them that really matter to women from the ovaries. There's 2 major estrogens that matter. Testosterone matters, progesterone matters. In case anyone wondered why I said 5, and DHEA matters. And sure enough, the compounding pharmacists found the sources. They were produced by the pharmaceutical companies who own soy fields. The plant world has hormones or hormone precursors too. How different are you from a plant? That would be the question of the day. Well, we are quite a bit different, but we're similar in that we've got molecules in plants. There's precursors that can be transformed by sophisticated biochemistry from what's in the soy, the diacetyl, into the hormones. Wow. And what they are capable of doing is producing hormones that are molecularly identical to what's in the human body. Same molecule. And they've been doing that since the 80s. They've been commercially available since the 80s.
Okay. But there's got to be something. So there's bioidentical medicine, but then there's you have your the menopause method, right? So there's a combination there, right? What's the unique, what's the special sauce there? You've got those, a combination of those two.
In any field of medicine, I'm going to give you a little bit of a circuitous answer because it's a big question. You're asking these rather fundamental and bigger questions. In any field of medicine, there's the possible practice of excellence.
Right.
And it evolves over centuries and centuries and centuries. The more people who care about it, who pay close attention to it, the better the knowledge base and the tools advance.
Okay.
And that's exactly what's occurred in so many specializations in medicine, including urology and neurology and
Mhm.
neurosurgery. You didn't go to a general surgeon. No, you went to a surgeon who said, I can't take on general surgery. I'm going to focus in on one thing and get great at it.
Yep.
And took a neurosurgery resident. And that body of knowledge is enough to occupy that person's whole lifetime.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so detailed. Well, who gets great and how do they get great? They pay attention. They're paying attention. They're trying new things. They're doing things built on what's known before, and they're deploying them, and they're seeing what works. So we call it a method, and this is where I'm getting to your answer.
Sure.
I don't
Yeah.
think it's a method. I think what happened is I chose to specialize it in it 30 years ago. I
Mm.
chose to pay a lot of attention. And I kept on seeking, well, what's the best way to do this? And what serves the women? What serves the men? What gives the best results? Where are they the happiest?
Yeah.
And we call it a method, but I don't think it's that. I think it's just paying attention and helping people with the best stuff available. And
Okay.
part of that is in midlife when the hormones decline to use bioidentical hormones. They're the best. There are
Yeah.
other hormones available. My God, if I had no other tools, I would gladly prescribe these other hormones. But the whole field has improved and improved and improved to a couple things about bioidentical. One thing is, and I learned this early on just by working with individuals.
Mm-hmm.
I learned, oh my God, there's vast differences between one individual and the next.
Yeah. Yeah.
For example, in a young woman, there's some young women who have this much estrogen.
Mm-hmm.
They need this much estrogen to regularly menstruate, to be fertile, to carry pregnancy to term. Other women need 3 times that amount.
Mm-hmm.
And there's everyone in between.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's so much individuality in the amount of estrogen. Oh, throw in the individuality in the amount of progesterone and the amount of testosterone and the amount of DHEA. You
Mm-hmm.
got infinite combinations there. But medically and clinically, it's no problem at all. If you work closely with your patient and you start her at low dosages and she gradually increases, she's going to alleviate her symptoms of insufficiency.
Yeah.
But if she goes too high, she's going to get symptoms of excess. So you
Mm.
back her down, and then we have sophisticated testing methods of hormones, and we find the sweet spot in any individual woman. So we just go through a process, and a lot of the method is about that. It's going through that process of dose determination. And by the time a woman seeks treatment, that's a 3-month, 4-month, 6-month process to help dial her in. She's been declining for 10 years minimum.
Mm.
We go slow, we go at the right rate, and we just figure out each individual. And there's a tremendous amount of variation. And why bioidentical is so important is these are dispensed through prescription
Yeah. Sure.
by compounding pharmacists. There's 7,500 of them in the United States, pharmacies, compounding pharmacies. There's 3 in your town, and I don't even know where you live, but there's bound to be 3. And these are the pharmacists they're the scholars. They're the ones who love mixing up the right amount, measuring out. They've got these computers and these analytical scales that they can get so precise. Well, they love this. They're not just taking pills out of a big bottle and putting them into a small bottle. They're measuring out individual prescriptions, and you need to. In order to really individualize it, you've got to write a very specific prescription.
Mm-hmm.
And compounding allows us to do that. So same molecule, that's the bioidentical. Compounded bioidenticals means individual prescriptions based on the variables in every individual. And the same goes for men.
Sure.
Same variability. You got to find the dose that brings a man back without giving him too much. So bioidentical method, I don't say it's a method. I say it's just copy nature.
Yeah.
And that was Dr. Wright's big one of his biggest contributions was, look, don't reinvent the human being. Just pay attention to it and copy it, and you're going to do good.
That's right.
And so that's not a method. That's just copying nature and supporting nature. I'm giving you the simplified version. We
Sure.
have what the Institute of BioIdentical Medicine is. It's a training program in which myself and my team, we spend the majority of the work that we do is in training and mentoring physicians and nurse practitioners to get great at this, to specialize in it, because there's so many moving parts. It's great when someone chooses, just like your neurosurgeon, he or she chose, I'm going to zero in on this. Well, the same is important for menopause and andropause, because there's so many moving parts to get it excellent.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet. Well, and so how now there's people watching that go, they're probably thinking, okay, I'm sold. I'm good. Individualized. Yes, please. This is great. Who do I talk to? How do I get this? How do so
Perfect.
you said
Perfect question.
there's 3 in my town. You don't even know where I live. So there's got to be they're everywhere basically. How do people reach out and take advantage of this?
Well, if you had a neurosurgery project, the best thing you could possibly do is do a little shopping in your town, and by word of mouth, if you're really lucky, you'd know someone in the medical profession. You ask, who's the best neurosurgeon in town? I think I want them.
Yeah.
And it's a shopping process, and it's a little harder to do in the world of compounded bioidentical hormones, but it's doable. And one thing you can do is you can go to bright.live. We've trained physicians and nurse practitioners, over 1,000 now in the United States. And with telemedicine, which midlife medicine, hormonal medicine for men and women, it works beautifully. Telemedicine. You still have your family doctor to handle things that need to be done in person, but you do not need to do this in person. Telemedicine is wonderful. It's a marriage made in heaven. Midlife issues and telemedicine. And you go shopping for someone in your state, because if they're licensed in your state, you don't have to be in. You don't have to get in your car and go drive to them. Though that may change with the controlled substance that testosterone is. But right now, you can just do telemedicine with them. So you go shopping, and here's the shopping tips.
Okay.
The world of menopause it's in a certain way, it's in its beginning as far as popular knowledge goes.
Okay.
So it really is still at a phase where you'd like to just go down the block and find your local menopause specialist, but it may not be that simple. So, in fact, there's so many different things that are offered that it really is helpful for a woman to know some things so that she knows what to ask as she's interviewing an office staff.
100%. Don't know what you don't know.
So what I recommend is that folks go to Jeff's website, because you have the offering, right, of being able to download a free PDF copy of our book, Happy Healthy Hormones. And I wrote it for women, and women will be able to learn what they need to know, so they know the questions to ask, and they know about the process, and they get to choose about a process that they care about, because they're going shopping. And that is the only job of a man and woman, is to go shopping for a provider that they like and trust, and doing methods that the patient themselves feel they feel comfortable with that method. And so that's why we wrote the book. And then if you contact bright.live, we've trained so many physicians and nurse practitioners that it's quite possible we have someone to refer you to according to the zip code that you enter, and our staff is there to help you get a list of who might be available to you in your state.
Wow.
And then here's another method. You may not know that there's 3 compounding pharmacists in your city. I'm only making a guess. It's pretty presumptuous.
The city I live in is pretty big, So
Then
it's
there are.
possible. It's
And
possible.
there are. But you
Um,
look up on Google compounding pharmacies near me.
there you
And
go.
what I recommend is that you don't call them up on the phone. Go into the pharmacy
Yes.
and ask to speak to the compounding pharmacist, not the
Nice.
staff, the compounding pharmacist. And they're
Nice.
very friendly folks. I know so many of them. No one's perfect, but very often they're eager.
Yeah.
They're in the medical profession. They're eager. They went into it because they wanted to help people. That was part of why they did that. And so they
Yes.
love to talk about it, a lot of them. And so you meet them person to person, because then there's a human relationship there. It's not a
Yeah.
screen at that point.
Exactly.
And you ask them this: I know you're filling prescriptions for compounded hormones. Who would you recommend that I reach out to? I'm in menopause. Your
Perfect.
local compounding pharmacist. So there's a couple ways to go shopping. Another way to go shopping, and often the very best, if you're fortunate, is you go looking around at your community and look at older women, and the ones that look the best, you can betcha most of them are on hormones, and ask them.
There you go.
Have you dealt with menopause? Do you happen to, yes, I'm taking hormones for 10 years. Do you know someone that you really like in the state of whatever state you're in? Because a
Perfect.
personal referral is gold. I
Always
saved the
better.
best for last. If you got a friend or a colleague or in your community or in your church or your synagogue or your mosque, you got someone you can talk to about it, that they've already met the person, they're already being treated by them, and they like them and they trust them,
Yeah.
and they're putting good results. It doesn't get better than that.
Yeah. That is 100%. That last one's that's best for any referral for any kind, is personal referral. So that's 100% true. Well, I'll tell you what, we got right to it, and I love that because we have about a minute left, and we're out of time already. So this is I know the fastest hour of your day has just come to an end almost. So what if you, in 30 seconds or less, is there anything that you would like to leave our audience with in this last minute or so?
We never, as a human race, we used to leave Earth before midlife.
Mhm.
We never had to face this before like we do now. Because of so many modern advances, we're living longer.
Yep.
And I promise you, you may feel pretty good in your 50s or pretty decent, but what's going to matter most to you is something you're not aware of, unless you're dealing with a relative, an older relative who started to
Mhm.
develop the problems of aging. That if you can possibly, as soon as you can think about it, investigate the world of replenishing hormones, because it's the most powerful thing that you can do for your health. It's not the only thing. We all know that, for God's
Right.
sake.
Right.
But if you can find someone and get the good treatment, and you're going to be so grateful. You're
Love it.
going to look back and go, oh my God, I actually did that for myself. Because what are you going to want to be doing at 90? You're going to
Right.
want to be thinking clearly. You're going to want to be walking and
Yep.
talking and sleeping and having fun, because you're at the wisest moment of your whole life.
Love it.
And you're at
I
the
love it.
maximum
Yeah.
ability to feel love, especially if you've been working on that one.
Right.
But you're going to want to feel good. And, 95% of you are going to need to replenish hormones to achieve that. There's these rare outliers smoking cigarettes for 80 years and they're climbing
Yeah.
mountains still. But these
Sure.
are very, very rare individuals. And hormone replenishing is one of the most powerful things you can do to live long and strong.
Well, that is perfect, and I'm so glad you pointed that out, because it's true, and I can't wait for all of you to reach out and get the information that you need with that QR code that I know I just took off the screen, but reach out. It's we are out of time, man, but thank you, Dr. Rosensweet. Thank you so much for being here and for giving this amazing information to our audience. So glad we got to do this. Thank you so much.
You're welcome so much, Jeff. We did that together. That was a team sport. takes a lot of synergy to
That's
get the
right.
best stuff.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. All right. My goodness. All right, everybody. Okay. He might have to come back because I don't feel like we covered nearly as much as we could have. Maybe we got to do a couple hours next time. I'll tell you what, we're out of time. Join us for our next show, Friday, June 21st. Share, like, subscribe, all the things. Till next time, have an amazing day, and we'll see you on the next show.